Hello and welcome to the Culture CodeCast, a podcast series brought to you by the HRM Committee of the Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I'm your podcast host, Kaushiki Srivastava. In this four-part series, we explore the themes shaping the future of workplaces across India, featuring insights from leaders who have authored our HR thought leadership booklets. Today's episode is titled Emotional Wellbeing at Work, and it's based on the booklet authored by Ruhie Pande. Ruhi is the Group Chief Human Resources Officer and Chief Marketing Officer at Sterlite. A seasoned professional with 2 decades of experience, she is responsible for leading HR, talent, strategy, media, communications, and culture for the group. Known for her empathy driven approach, Ruhi has a proven track record of building and harnessing people power across diverse industries. As an accomplished leader, she serves as chairperson of the HRM Committee at the BCCI and mentors young women. She has been recognized with multiple industry awards, including Business World's Most Influential Women. Welcome to the podcast, Ruhi. I'm really looking forward to discussing the leadership imperative of emotional well-being at workplaces with you.
Thank you so much, Kaushiki. I'm very happy to be here to discuss a topic which is very close to my heart, which is all about mental and emotional well being at the workplace.
So, Ruhi, to set the stage, how do you personally define emotional well-being in today's workplace, especially in the Indian context?
Yeah. So, Kaushiki, if you ask me, for me, emotional well being is the fuel of sustainable performance. And it's just not about feeling good every day, but it's all about resilience, connection, and balance. It is the ability for an employee to bring their whole self to work every single day, to be who they are and not try to be someone else. It is anchored in autonomy, belonging, and purpose. And also, it asks that we provide for flexibility in moments of vulnerability, anyone going through grief, areas when women come back from their maternity breaks, people going through health issues. I believe empathy is a policy, it's not a perk. I don't think it's a choice. The workplace has to be empathetic. For example, as I was thinking to myself, what could be a good example? We recently introduced a menstrual support for all our women employees. Providing them work from home when they're going through their menstrual cycle. They came and spoke to us about it, and we realized that it's an opportunity where we can provide them support. So I think that all talks to the quality of empathy. I also believe that the families have to be included in the well-being program, recognizing that employee health is deeply connected with household health. If someone's not happy at home, how will they be happy at work, right? And the last but not the least, openness to diversity, embracing diversity as a way of being, not just on paper. Without all these, organizations will create grind cultures, people will burn out. With them, they create thrive cultures where employees are motivated and they are very happy.
So, Ruhi, very interestingly, you're talking about burnout and the importance of household health and employee well-being and the organizational context of it, right? Why do you think emotional well-being still gets treated as an add-on rather than a core business priority today?
Yeah. The most important reason for that, Kaushiki, unfortunately, is that it doesn't show up on the financial reports, right? There is no hard factor to kind of report it out, right? As easily as revenue or profit would show up on your financial report. But here's what I believe is not spoken about enough. I think presenteeism is costlier than absenteeism, right? People show up, but they operate at half of their capacity or half of their productivity due to stress. And that silently drains out the bottom line of any organization. The stigma to ask for help is very real. It exists even today. So while organizations go all out and launch mental health programs, particularly India, where mental health is seen as a stigma, they are labeled as weak. And unless leadership makes it visible that support is not a sign of weakness, employees continue to suffer in silence. And oftentimes, all these areas go untreated. The silent exodus of women from the workforce after maternity is a very classic example, right? I don't think any phase of life is as challenging as return of a mother to the workplace. And not because of competence, but it's sheerly due to the lack of emotional and structural support. Policies which nurture women when they come back to the workplace, policies which create awareness in her team on how do you function when a woman is returning, from a maternity break, flexibility provided to women, open discussions around these are all areas which will create a very welcoming environment or a culture when a woman is returning. And such policies ensure retention and they normalize shared parenting, right? So that's another area. The hidden costs of neglect are staggering: burnout, attrition, and disengagement. But to your first point, they don't show up anywhere. But they are staggering. I mean, the impact of poor mental health on the workplace, bottom line as well as top line, is immense. In India, 62% of employees report burnout, which is almost three times of the global average. Um, what's unconventional here is realizing that emotional well-being is a part of the employee value proposition. It attracts and retains talent. Uh, and I don't think at my current organization we ask what is the ROI of well-being, but we ask what is the cultural and human cost of not investing. I think what we need to move towards, well-being is not a perk, but is a business continuity strategy. And then this entire ethos will change.
So very, very interesting, Ruhi. You mentioned quite a bit about the fact that we need to have the policies that sort of allow for these spaces. You spoke a little bit about. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, of course, in terms of literally the staff that falls off the grid and how productivity does have a long term impact when it's when wellness is hampered. Um, from your perspective, how can HR leaders and business heads embed emotional safety into the culture beyond policies or with these policies?
Well, that's a very interesting question, Kaushiki, and I believe that HR has a very important role to play, both in creating the awareness with the leadership, and like we discussed, right, this doesn't show up on the financial report, so it's left to the HR leaders and the HR function to create the kind of awareness about the importance of mental well-being. But I think what HR leaders can do really well is train managers and normalize conversations for sure, right? But also, some of the other things which they can do is call out microaggressions, right, at the workplace. Microaggressions are small, often invisible stressors, interrupting women in meetings, not asking an introvert to speak up or participate in a meeting, subtle biases in promotions, subtle biases in recognitions and rewards. Left unaddressed, they erode psychological safety. People don't feel safe enough to speak up. They get stressed at work, and it burns out people and it creates poor mental health. Building grief and crisis protocols. Very few organizations prepare managers on how to respond when employee is going through stress at home, losing of a loved one, going through a divorce, facing a serious illness. Silence makes things worse when people don't speak about it. So a structured and a compassionate policy response helps, and training managers and leaders into addressing these issues is very important. I would say go beyond tokenism. It's easy for organizations to launch the EAP. You get the vendor, you launch it, but how do you normalize that people are coming up and talking about these issues, right? They are actually using these facilities. That's very important. The second interesting thing is, how do you make EAPs, which is your employee assistance programs, accessible to families? Because a healthy family contributes to a mentally healthy employee, right? And last but not the least, break the always on trap. WhatsApp groups, emails, a lot of organizations reward people sending emails at 2 a.m. in the night. WhatsApp messages burn out people. You're constantly worried about stress at the workplace. So, breaking this always on trap, ensuring people take breaks, setting healthy boundaries. In high performance organizations, overwork is often glorified. HR needs to reset the narrative that rest fuels performance and taking breaks is absolutely fine.
Ruhi, I really sort of second your point on going beyond the tokenism, and I think you mentioned something really valuable about really training people and organizations to handle or help employees through life stages, through grief. I think uh, growingly people are becoming non-confrontational about these things and boundaries. Of course, it comes from perhaps giving people space or respecting boundaries, but I think how an organization, how business can actually support their employees, how managers and employees can support each other through these moments, it truly binds the culture, as you rightly say. And I think this is where I really feel that we should plug in this booklet that you've come up with, because this is what you're speaking about, this is what you've written about in your booklet. And I think uh, with everything that you have mentioned right now, with some of those tips that go beyond policies, but also having policies that sort of support this, it's so important to share this, to share some best practices with organizations that are probably looking for guidance on how do they go beyond the EAP, like you said, right? Since we have your booklet coming out soon, Ruhi, can you give us maybe one or two practical actions that any company can implement that are present in this booklet?
Yeah, Kaushiki, I think this is a very interesting question. I would be very happy to share, but I think I wanted to make a point here before I start sharing practical examples that safety isn't a soft culture like a lot of people would like to believe, right? They say that let's get into hard performance metrics and we don't want to be this soft organization. It's no more about soft culture alone. I think it's a hard business lever. Without it, companies lose innovation, loyalty, create attrition, and it's a vicious cycle which just continues going. So, what are some of the things which companies can start actively doing on an immediate basis? I think team check in rituals. It's practiced as a very good practice across multiple industries and not just the corporate India. Start meetings with a quick check in of how are you doing? How's everyone feeling today? Is everyone okay? Are you feeling right? It's a small, free, and powerful tool. Or checking in, doing pulse checks with employees. There are multiple tools available, AI platforms available, which basically just check in on a daily basis at a pre-described frequency how people are doing. And if people are not doing well, at least the managers or the HR can come to know about it. Mental Health Allies Network is a very good example of what some companies are doing, which essentially means that they train line managers and not just HR as the first responders. So, in the event that an employee is not feeling good, it's not just left to the HR. The line managers can also spot. They are listening, so that colleagues always find that here is the go-to person I can go and talk to. Silent room pause spaces. Every time encouraging people to take breaks. Create a physical or a virtual reset space where employees can step away for 10 minutes, breathe, relax. It sounds small, but signals that mental health breaks are absolutely acceptable. And like I spoke about, one of the very known phases of life of a woman, post maternity transition support. And at our organization, we've created a program which provides mental, nutritional support to a returning mother, and not just focusing on the maternity leave as such, but supporting the reintegration with counseling, flexible timings, spouse coaching. So it's all about sustaining careers and not just ticking the compliance boxes.
So At this point, like I said, I'm going to plug in your booklet, Ruhi. So check out the booklet that Ruhi has authored, which is Emotional Wellbeing at Work. And of course, this is going to be out on the Bombay Chamber website as well as the LinkedIn page very soon, and we'll share more details with you. So Ruhi, but picking up from where you left off, you spoke about some of the great work that your organization is doing, and really talking about some of these very basic things like check-ins, and meaningful check-ins at the start of a meeting, having those 10-minute breaks to allow for. And I think this speaks volumes also about a culture and organizational's tolerance thresholds and really a psychological safety. So when we speak of emotional well-being, right, I mean, it's also the little things and not just the policies on paper that make a person comfortable, safe, feel safe enough. And thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to come to an important question, because at the end of the day, all of this still has to make business sense. No matter how we sort of package this, what the CEO needs and what the business really needs to still see is an ROI of how this could help. So, some recommendations, some measurement ideas that you could share on how we can actually measure ROI or impact for such well-being initiatives or practices, what can go a long way?
No, thanks. I think Kaushiki, very, very relevant question. And in my opinion, we should measure the cost of silence. That's very important. If employees aren't using support systems, they're not speaking up, aren't reporting stressors, that's not success. In my opinion, that's stigma, right? True impact shows up when people feel safe enough to use these policies openly. And thereby, some of the matrices, which are business plus health impact, in my opinion, could be attrition amongst key cohorts or key groups, women joining back post maternity, young hires, Gen Z, millennials, mid career talent. What are the attrition trends amongst these cohorts? A sudden rise in the attrition here signals that your mental support is, it's not really up to the mark. Absenteeism versus presentism, like I already spoke about it earlier. Presentism is just logging in but being disengaged. I can work for 10 hours and contribute nothing. I could work for 2 hours and come up with the most awesome idea. So, in my opinion, logging in and but being disengaged is far more costlier than absenteeism. Very few companies actually track it. Healthcare data, reduction in stress related claims, counseling usage trends, fewer burnout related medical leaves. I think these are all hard data points which one could actually start tracking. Productivity measures, sales per employee, project completion timelines, reduced error rates, higher NPS. I think all these point to the fact that something is working. So that is something else which one could look at. How many new ideas are you getting? How many innovations has the company been able to launch? I think that's another thing to look at. Then some soft metrics, which are more culture and trust indicators. Psychological safety index. Are employees comfortable? We can launch simple listening and surveys, asking questions. Are they saying they need help? Openness to feedback. How many people are actually responding to surveys? Participation rates, right? And last but not the least, storytelling impact. Measure the number of leaders, employees openly sharing vulnerability. They are taking a break and talking openly about it. How many people are openly sharing mental health challenges? All these things will show that the stigma is slowly reducing. Apart from that, I would say that there could be some completely unconventional measures to track ROI. They are progressive in nature. Post maternity career retention. Are women coming back? Are they thriving? Are they taking on larger roles? Or quietly exiting? So that's another. And I know of a lot of good organizations which have programs to support women to come back into the workplace. Utilization of your EAPs, right? Are employees' families using the EAPs? I think that's another very clear measure. Microaggressions and bias reports. tracking frequency and resolution time of reported cases, gendered remarks, exclusion of people in meetings, because emotional well being is directly tied to inclusion. Uh, Boundary respect data. Are leaders sending fewer late night emails? Are teams respecting quiet hours? And there are digital tools which can track that. The more your employees are burning the midnight oil, the higher the possibility of people burning out, right? And of course, energy check ins. How are you feeling today? Simple one liner. A lot of companies use smileys, etc., to indicate what is the general mood. And last but not the least, long term cultural indicators, right? Because a lot of these are short term. Innovation health. Are employees feeling safe to suggest better ideas? Are they taking more risks? A psychological unsafe culture kills creativity. We all know that. Leadership empathy scores. How are employees rating their managers on listening, compassion, and fairness? And a very important long term indicator, what is your employee brand pull? Are people willing to come and join your company? Are candidates citing culture and well being as reasons to join? Because the more they are, the higher the quality of talent you will be able to attract. And I think it's a proven research that the better the quality of the attraction of talent for a company, the better are the financial results. So I would say all these are various ROI tracking metrics.
Wonderful, Ruhi. You gave, I think our listeners have a treasure trove of, measurables to start with. And especially when we speak of productivity, we know today businesses are really focusing on productivity and, return on investments, revenues, profits, but talent is at the core of it. And organizational culture and employer brand goes a long way. You rightly said that how is your attraction rate, right? Talent attraction rate, what's your brand recall, really speaks for the long term. And emotional well-being is one of the things that an organization can do right at the bare minimum for that. So but thank you so much for sharing this with us, Ruhi. And I really do want to just tell you about how uh, this journey of this podcast has been today. We spoke a lot about the importance, the definition of emotional well-being at workplace. It's not just about building an empathy or having an EAP led culture, but really actually entrenching this within a organization's culture, within practices, within learnings and trainings for people, and really having like a top down and a down up sort of a culture. I think to our listeners, some quick takeaways that I can see from your conversation today is that emotional well being is cultural, it's not cosmetic. Leaders must lead with empathy, especially under pressure. And any real change, it actually starts with everyday conversations and those small check ins and really making those minute changes and removing the microaggressions, as you rightly mentioned. So, anyone who is willing to make these small changes, I'm sure, will be willing to start picking up the big battles at some stage. You can dive deeper into this by reading Ruhi's booklet, Emotional Wellbeing at Work, available on the Bombay Chamber website and LinkedIn page. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Culture Codecast. Thank you so much, Ruhi. It was such a pleasure hosting you.
Now, thank you, Kaushiki. Loved having this chat with you, and I'll be hoping that some of these ideas could be picked up by organizations and help us in our entire endeavor as the HRM Committee of Bombay Chambers of Commerce and Industries to further this entire concept of emotional and mental well-being at workplace. Thank you so much, Kaushiki. Lovely
Thank you
talking to
so
you.
much. Thank you. Join us next time for episode 2, where we'll continue our conversations on workplace culture with a new guest and a new theme. Thank you.